Hey guys, what's up? It's ShadowQ, and I'm coming at you today with the patch notes review for Hand of the Gods. This patch, oh my god. Okay, oops. Well, uh, this patch should already be live, but I have not seen any of the patch notes, so I'm going to be reacting to them. I've heard some crazy things about Discordia, but I don't really know exactly what she does. But here we go. Let's get into it. The patch is called Chaos in Rome, and one of the new cards, I guess here we go right off the bat, is Discordia. Discordia is a Roman unit. It's a ranged unit. It's a 4 mana 3/3 Warcry. Swap hands with your opponent. This is crazy. Um, wow. My first impression is just to say that this is just flat out broken, right? Maybe like theoretically you could just have like a bunch of 0 mana cost cards that can give you like small tempo advantages like Blink or Pin or Discord. You can use those synergies, and you have a bunch of aggro units like maybe you could even run a beast package with like Hyena or something. Or you just put like really aggressive units in the deck that are really cheap, and then you swap hands with your opponent, giving your opponent 0 cards in this hand, giving you a 3/3 ranged unit, which isn't even that understated for 4 mana. It definitely is, but it's not that big of a drawback. And then they have no cards left in their hand. Like, this is ridiculous. This is one of the craziest cards that they could print. And even if you don't go with an all-in strategy like this, you can still do some things like once you run out of steam and you have like situational cards in the late game, you can swap hands with your opponents like right before they have that big Phantom Grasp turn or their big Book of the Dead turn or like a big Annihilation turn or anything like that. Like when you know or expect they've been saving removal or a really situational card, you can just save Discordia for that turn. Like the longer the game goes on, the bigger the chance that you steal their big swing cards if you don't give them a situation to play it in, right? So maybe Discordia can just like steal the opponent's late game value too. Maybe you just put this in every Roman deck and wait for the perfect situation to play it. There's a chance that the meta could be like too tempo oriented for you to not want to play a 4 mana 3/3 because everyone's just trying to fight for board. Like Roman already wants to just play Bacchus and just wait, or like play Mercury and wait, or just like develop a Gladiator, and like you don't really want to do the rush strategy, you don't really want to do the long game control strategies. So maybe this won't see a place. But this card has so much potential, it's ridiculous. This could fit into so many archetypes that um, this is insane. This card may see a ton of play, it may see no play, but this is one of the crazier effects they could have added to the game, so I'm really glad they did it. The next card is Insight. It's Hindu. It is a spell. It's a 3 mana epic. You replace your leader ability with discover a card in your deck. So this card is ridiculously slow. It doesn't really specify here, but I assume since it doesn't say anything, I assume that the discover a card in your deck spell costs 2 mana. So right off the bat, you're paying, like, if you only get one use of this, you're paying 5 mana to discover a card in your deck. That's, like, exceptionally horrible, right? Like, this is such a slow card in a meta that's just based on, like, getting stuff onto the board and developing it. That being said, this may be viable in, like, some weird slow control deck, and you can just need to, like, dig for your big thing. My first impression is that this card is way too slow. It also, I mean, it replaces the hero power to it, so it's not like you have access to your pillar hero power in Hindu anymore, right? So it's sometimes a downside too, which I'm pretty sure this is like typically better than the develop the pillar hero power. But I don't know, man. I'm not sold on this card. This just seems a little underpowered to me. All right, next is Mana Burst Chinese. Spell 1 mana rare. Deal damage equal to your opponent's unused mana. This is really interesting because this is a card that you can really counterplay around. If you know that this card exists and people are running it, you can just spend all your mana each turn, maybe like lose a bit of value to not get bursted down so much. So one thing that's also really important about this card is that it says deal damage equal to your opponent's unused mana, not deal damage equal to, or not deal damage to a unit. So this can target the enemy crystal. And that's a big deal because this has the potential to be a 1 mana deal 10 damage. This could be the biggest burst combo in the game. You could do something like if you have 2 of these, they have 10 mana, and you just deal 20 damage to the crystal. Like, I don't think that'll ever really happen. But even if your opponent leaves open like 3 mana, 1 mana deal 3 damage is really good. The thing is, like, it's not the same thing as like a Magma Slam is early game, because that's gonna guarantee you the 3 damage when you need it, right? Nobody's gonna have the like extra mana open in the early game except for maybe one or two crystals. So I think like stuff like Manifold Blade is better than this. Like just another Crescent Blade if you have Erlang Shins or Chungos is probably better than this. Um, I don't know. This is a bit underpowered, I think. Well, not necessarily underpowered, but it's really situational. Maybe in like a control meta where people are leaving open a lot of mana, where people aren't necessarily playing to the curve every turn, this card becomes better and better. But I tend to lean on the underpowered side of things. I don't know, man. This card has a lot of potential though. I could see like late game, you just have a one mana deal six a lot of the time, or one mana deal four. That's not bad. It's just this card isn't nearly as useful in the early game when everybody's just curving out on turns like two, three, four. Um, cool card though. Really, really well designed, I think. Transmute Dead Mayan. Spell 2 mana rare. Discard a card and spawn a 4/4 crazed zombie. Um, I can't remember if there's another discard mechanic in the game. I think Mayan also has a lot of synergy with like discarding cards, like that pillar or the structure that like you can look at your graveyard and choose if you want that or a something else in your hand. Um, that being said, this is a I mean 2 mana 4/4 is this is like similar to Fafnir in a way. Like you're giving your deck a downside to get some crazy immediate upside. It's also really important to note that a crazed zombie should have 3 tiles of movement. It shouldn't. It shouldn't just move the one tile like other zombies too. I don't know mine well enough to say if this is going to be good or not. I really don't. I tend to say that this is probably a good card though. It really depends on how much discard and graveyard synergy the deck has. Really, I think because 2 mana discard a card and spawn a 4/4 isn't really bad on its own. This game is really really tempo based, and if that lets you curve out, I mean, more power to you, I guess. I think it's a solid card. Reworked card: Celestial Armor Egyptian. Cost increased from 3 to 8. Now the new effect is select a friendly unit. Whenever it is targeted, spawn a 4/4 copy of it. That's really interesting. So 8 mana, summon a 4/4 copy of it. I don't know. Whenever it's targeted, spawn a 4/4 copy of it. Um, does that mean by attacks? This card is really weird. I'm not exactly sure what this means. So let's say you put this on a fire giant, just for an arbitrary example. So whenever your opponent targets it with an attack or with a spell, or I don't know, this card is ambiguous to me. Maybe it's obvious to you guys, but it seems like you can target it with an attack. So like whenever it gets attacked, it has to summon a 4/4 just dude. It seems really slow, but if it includes like attacks like from units on the board, it becomes a lot better. Worst case scenario, it's like a worse Scarab's Blessing, but I guess then it costs 8 mana, right? Like if you just execute the fire giant, then um, it's just like why not just have a Scarab's Blessing then? Because I guess that's only a yeah. I don't know. This card really does seem subpar. Maybe there's a situation where you don't have an execute and you have to target it with a bunch of 1/1 units to kill it, and it's just becomes a unit that can literally never get removed. But I don't know. Even then, I feel like Scarab's Blessing just outclasses this card. 8 mana is so expensive to summon like even an army of 4/4s compared to that card. This can also get silenced off. Um, oh, that'll be interesting. You can target. I wonder if targeting it with silences counts as a target. So before the silence effect happens, does it spawn a 4/4? That'll be really really interesting. I'm not sure. There are a lot of questions with this card, like exactly how does it work, and overall this seems like a bad card though. Uh, I guess the other case is if your opponent ignores it, maybe you can target it with some things. Maybe you have like the 1 mana Egyptian card that makes it summon a 1/1, which also instantly summons a 4/4 now because this is on there. Maybe you could target with the Scarab's Blessing too, just to summon a 4/4. Like, there's a lot of potential. Maybe in order for this to be even remotely good, you have to have stuff in your own deck that can target it too. Like maybe you're running Venator or Scion of Doom or something like that. If those even work, I'm not sure. I wonder if target it means like specifically with spells. A lot of potential with this card, but it seems so slow. I can't see this seeing much play. Kraken Greek, now a spell card. Wait, what was it before? I don't know what the card Kraken was. Was it a minion? I don't remember this being in the game. Maybe it was a minion a while ago or something. 3 mana. Replace your leader ability with a Kraken. Poseidon. This is like so this costs 1 less than the previous Poseidon, but it doesn't give you the 2/2 body. This is arguably better. Poseidon saw play before. This card could be really solid. Not much more to say about this. People know generally how Poseidon was before. I think this is just a pretty solid card. One thing that's interesting is it gives you the option to run two of these. People are going to be like, oh, but if you have two in your hand, then one's completely dead. That's true, but I mean, maybe you want the consistency of it, right? It at least gives you the option to run two now. So that'll be really really interesting. Poseidon is a new Greek card. Basically, he no longer has the war cry of his thing. New ability, war cry. Return all enemy units on Poseidon's row to their owner's hand. Add a random god to your hand for each returned. So I assume that this is still a 4 mana 2/2. And if that's the case, this is ridiculous. If this returns like a war behemoth, this is enemy units, not just gods. So if this is a war behemoth or like just another the opponent's Hades or even an Athena, like this is insane. Um, this is ridiculous. Actually, this is insanely strong. Whoa! If this is still a 4 mana 2/2, if I'm remembering right, then this is just like Hebo on steroids, basically. It's not a ranged unit, but you get a random god in your hand. But it can affect more than one unit. And this is probably one of the first line or row or area of effect things that you have to really play around in Greek. Maybe there's that Cataclysm spell, but typically you don't have to play around too many abilities with Greek. So this will be really interesting. I'm pretty sure this card is absolutely insane though. This is like auto include in every Greek deck ever. um, like it's basically Hebo, but it's slower. But you add a random god to your hand, which is like a huge upside, and it's faster if you count being able to bounce more than one unit at a time. That's just insane. I'm pretty sure this card is ridiculous. um, all right. New rework spell, Sacrifice, cost increase from 2 to 3. Its new text reads, kill a friendly unit and add 2 copies of it to your hand. That, I don't understand. Why would you do that? If you kill a really big guy, then you're killing a really big guy. And then that's just really bad for your board. I guess you could look at this like a 3 mana draw 2 of your choice. But it's not really that. Even if you kill like a 5, like let's say you kill a fire giant with 1 health, so you're basically just banking in on the value that you did for the first 7 of its health, being able to tank and make trades and stuff like that. But you're still killing a 5/1 on the board. This is like worse than drawing 2 cards. Maybe there's a maybe you want to kill like your Cirquets or Bestets or I don't know, man. This card seems like the worst card I've ever seen. I can't wrap my head around this one. All right, let's go forward. Reworked card, Void Zone Mayan. Moved from the Hindu pantheon to the Mayan pantheon. I didn't know what it did before, so I'm just gonna go into this with a clean slate sort of thing. 4 mana, silence all enemies adjacent to either summoning stone. Um, Interesting. It makes sense in Mayan, I guess. If this did the same thing in Hindu, that would be really weird because you're silencing your own pillars that you have all the way back. But that's not what this does anymore. Silence all enemies adjacent to either summoning stone. This could silence like a Guan or maybe this is good tech if Egypt gets out of control. Um, I don't know. This seems a bit slow to me. I feel like I'd rather run Chaos Spawn. This is more expensive and it doesn't develop a body. I think silencing your own stuff is probably worse. Maybe if stuns are apparent in the meta, you can silence the stuns off your guys and this becomes viable. Maybe if there's a lot of stuns or a lot of Egypt or I don't know. This is a good tech card. I don't think this is good in the general sense though. Decent tech card though. New Gauntlets, Weekday Gauntlet 1 Colossal. Decks can only include cards that cost 5 or more. Start with 5 mana. That's pretty cool. Marksman players can only queue with decks that have spells and ranged units. No melee units are allowed. These are cool deck building challenges. I'm actually pretty excited to play these. I just wish you didn't have to play 5 in a row to get the rewards. That seems like a bit excessive. Players can only queue with decks that have spells and ranged units. Oh, I read that one. Next one. Map includes only 3 rows of playable tiles. All normal decks allowed. Ooh, I don't know if they've done anything like this before because I just started playing again. But this is really interesting. This like changes the entire mechanic of the game. That'll be pretty cool. That's like something really, really unique. That's outside of a deck building challenge. They're actually changing the board too, so that's pretty cool. Next is Pantheon Wars. Players can only queue with decks that have all Egyptian or Chinese cards. Ooh, interesting. So no neutral cards. So basically, it's just Chinese versus Egyptian, or Chinese versus Chinese, or Egyptian versus Egyptian only. No neutral cards whatsoever. Oh man, Egyptian's gonna run amok there. No chaos spawns for them. Oh man, it's gonna be crazy. That'll be really fun. I want to play that one more than the others. The rest are just bug fixes. So these are my first impressions of the cards. I can't wait to be wrong about every single one of these. Otherwise, thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Have a good day, guys. Enjoy the patch.